Everyone dreams of becoming the richest person in the world. However, not everyone is willing to take the risks, the sacrifices, and do the hard work that it takes to become the richest person in the world. John D. Rockefeller, the creator of Standard Oil Company, was extremely hardworking, and he took the risks that eventually helped him become the richest person in the world. I believe that Rockefeller is a captain of industry and helped shape America into what it is today. In this speech, I will tell you about his early life, Standard Oil Company, and the problems with John D. Rockefeller. Let's start with his early life. John D. Rockefeller was born on July 8, 1939 in Richmond, New York. He was the second of 6 children of William Avery Rockefeller and Eliza Davison Rockefeller. His father owned farmland and was also a pitchman, which was a doctor who claimed that he could cure cancers and would charge up to $25 for a treatment. He would be gone for months at a time, moving from town to town, and would return to his family with a lot of money. His mother was a very religious and disciplined woman. She brought up her family very strictly and taught John to work, to save, and to give to charities. John did his share of chores around the house. He earned extra money by raising turkeys, selling potatoes and candy, and lending money to neighbors. John went to school and learned some valuable skills. He excelled at mental arithmetic and was able to solve difficult arithmetic problems in his head, which would later become very useful throughout his career. After high school, John spent 10 weeks at Folsom's Commercial College. He learned a lot of skills such as bookkeeping, penmanship, commercial history, mercantile customs, banking, and exchange. After college, he found his first job as a produce clerk. At age 19, he started his own company with an Englishman called Clark and Rockefeller. According to biography.com, they grossed $450,000 in their first year of trading. Clark did the field work, and John controlled office management, bookkeeping, and relationships with the bankers. In the early 1860s, John found an opportunity in the oil business, and he opened up his first oil refinery outside of Cleveland in 1863. And this is just the beginning to a huge career in the oil industry. A few years later, John bought out some of his partners and took over the largest refinery in Cleveland. On January 10, 1870, John D. Rockefeller joined forces with some other men and created the Standard Oil Company. John owned the majority of the company at 30%. The Standard Oil Company dominated the oil business and had near control of every part of the business. They established pipelines and had their own train cars that could transport their products. He introduced new techniques that reshaped the oil industry. In the 19th century, kerosene was in high demand. When crude oil is turned into kerosene, there are many byproducts that other people saw as waste. Rockefeller saw it as gold. He sold this waste to people who could use it in their profession. He sold paraffin to candle makers and sold petroleum jelly to medical supply companies. Because he shipped so many goods, railroad companies were dying for his business. He was smart and demanded rebates from the railroad companies. He used all the methods he could to reduce the price of oil for his customers. Because of his methods, his profits soared, and one by one his competitors were going out of business. In 1882, Rockefeller's standing with the public fell apart after he created the Standard Oil Trust. The Standard Oil Trust was a corporation of corporations made up of 41 companies, and it gained a lot of attention due to its size and wealth. This trust had 9 trustees, including Rockefeller, which ran all the companies in the trust. Rockefeller had control of about 90% of the nation's oil refineries and pipelines. The company became the richest, biggest, and most feared company in the world, and was always making profits every year. As Rockefeller kept running more small companies out of business, more and more American people started to dislike him and his company. Many muckraking journalists such as Henry Lloyd and Ida Tarbell published stories criticizing Rockefeller and the Standard Oil Company. They viewed him as a symbol of corporate greed and was criticizing him for things like railroad rebates, price fixing, and bribery. By using these kinds of practices, he crushed smaller companies that could not compete with Standard Oil. In 1888, the Standard Oil Company was investigated by the New York Senate and by the U.S. House of Representatives, and 2 years later, the Ohio Supreme Court nullified the Standard Oil Trust. Rockefeller then disbanded the organization. Rockefeller's most famous involvement outside the oil industry happened in 1896 when he nearly controlled Great Lakes shipping by helping develop the Mesabi iron ore range in Minnesota. Because he had control of shipping in the Great Lakes, he was now able to control the steel industry. So so then he made an alliance with Andrew Carnegie. The agreement was that Rockefeller could not get involved in steelmaking, and Carnegie could not get involved in transportation. In 1901, Rockefeller sold all his ore holdings to Carnegie and J.P. Morgan, and his fortune passed the $200 million mark for the first time. As a result, the Standard Oil Trust, the U.S. Congress passed the Sherman Antitrust Act, which was the first federal legislation that prohibited trust and combinations that restrained trade. In conclusion, John D. Rockefeller played a huge role in American industry. As a child, Rockefeller was very hardworking and learned how to make money at a young age. He, along with others, created the Standard Oil Company, which dominated the oil industry and had a near monopoly. Problems arose with Rockefeller when he created the Standard Oil Trust and almost had control over the whole oil industry in America. After he retired, he donated the majority of his money for the development of schools and health programs. After my research of John D. Rockefeller, I now have a new appreciation for his hard work, but I also learned how dangerous a monopoly could be. John D. Rockefeller is a captain of industry in America and will always be one of the most influential men in American history.